Sports Talk on a Friday. We've made it to the end of the week, and we are here with you for the next 3 hours, plus a little extra for overtime today on 580 Sports Talk, on 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in video on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube and on Facebook, WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis, the Power Trio in with you today. We are, again, going to be with you until 6:30. We will hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network for Game 1 of what's being called the 20-game Gauntlet for the Royals. These next 20 games in a 20-day stretch will tell a large part of the tale of this 2024 Royals season. It starts tonight at the K with the National League East leading Philadelphia Phillies in town. Game 1 of a 3-game series. First pitch at 7:10 tonight. Michael Wacha on the bump for KC. Taijuan Walker for Philadelphia will give way to the Royals Baseball Network at 6:30 this evening for the pregame coverage, so we will have a little overtime for you. In the confines of our 3 hours, we have lots to get to, including taking a look ahead to this 20-game stretch, what it looks like, what would be acceptable for the Royals over the course of these next 20 games, and what they'll have to do to win the Central. What they would have to do in this 10-game stretch to put themselves in position to win this division. It is extremely up for grabs as we enter this weekend, with the Royals just 2 games out of first place in the American League Central. We will talk plenty of Royals baseball on the show today. We've also got some Chiefs to talk about. The Chiefs went 0-3 in the preseason. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. The Chiefs got blown out by the Bears. I don't even remember the final score, 34-21, something like that.
34-21.
That's how important it is that I immediately forgot what the final score was. But it was not pretty. It was not a real fun football game to watch.
No, let's cut the BS. That game sucked. That was an extremely unenjoyable version of football that we saw last night.
Yeah, it was a...
There were 2 games that happened last night, and I ended up watching both because the game that was on Prime was re-aired on NFL Network last night around 11 o'clock. So I did watch that because Jason Bean played plenty. That at least looked like football. Like there was something there. There was some intrigue. There was something to it. Chiefs-Bears was the most extreme example I can remember in recent years of we're here because we have to be. Like, this is game 162 for 2 teams with 58 wins. Like, that's the kind of energy that game had last night. Chiefs were just trying to get to week 1. The Bears had already played 3 games.
Yeah, this was a bonus preseason game that only the 60 to 91st guys on the preseason roster really wanted.
Yeah, so it was useful. It was not pleasant. That is how I would describe last night's quote-unquote football action.
Yeah, that'd be a good way to put it, I think. Chiefs lost the game. We'll talk about the 2 standouts from last night. Because you had so many second, third, fourth team guys on the field, there were guys who did play who were too good for that game. Like,
I can think of 2.
Yes, we're going to talk about those 2 guys for the Chiefs. It's like if you sent a varsity player to, like, a varsity baseball player on a rehab assignment with the JV, or like when you got a big leaguer and they get hurt and they go down to like A ball for you're like, you send Max Scherzer to A ball for a rehab start.
I remember one year I was on vacation with my family. This is years ago now. We were on vacation. We were in Charleston, South Carolina, home of the River Dogs, who are a single A affiliate of the Yankees. And lo and behold, Alex Rodriguez was on a rehab assignment. He had been injured. They sent him on a rehab assignment. They sent him to Charleston. And, I mean, it was crazy. They sold out the ballpark. They had an autograph thing before the game just with him. It was nuts. If I remember correctly, he hit a home run on the first pitch he saw, and he was with the Yankees by the weekend. Like, there was no need for that. Like, okay, just put him in the cage. This kid is going to be kid on the mound is going to be an accountant in 6 weeks. Like, come on. There's no need for this.
So we will discuss what there is to discuss. And I'll ask Brendan if I'm overreacting with one particular reaction that I had to last night's game. I want to see if Brendan thinks that I'm overreacting to what we saw. Also, it happened after we went off the air yesterday, which was unfortunate timing on everyone's part. But Creed Humphrey got himself a bag. He's the highest paid center in the history of the National Football League. So we'll touch on that too, what that deal means for Creed and the Chiefs and their roster building moving forward. And we'll get Matt Derrick's perspective on all of this too, our Chiefs insider, because he'll join us as he does every Friday at 3:35 here on the program, our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick. And we will get one final training camp report from the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. You'll hear from him around 5:25. One last training camp report to wrap up the preseason, brought to us again by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. Another NFL topic we'll get to today. Ben Solak at ESPN.com ranked the coaching staffs in the NFL. We were going to get to this yesterday. We ran out of time. We got some time for it today. The Chiefs rank where you think they would. But like we talked about the offenses on yesterday's show, we'll talk about the coaching staffs in the league, who we like, who we don't, who we think Ben Solak is overrating, who we think he's underrating. We'll give our top coaching staffs. We'll have our thoughts on that later on in the show. All that, plus all of the things you've come to know and love from a Friday edition of the program. A little bit of Change My Mind. On second thought, we'll crown a weekly What Is Wrong With You champion. Sports headlines at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. All that good stuff. Plus your interaction with the show. We appreciate you listening so much on this Friday afternoon. If you're watching on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, jump on into the live chat section, interact with other listeners and your hosts. You can also text the program, the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. From construction sites to renovations, from the farm to the garage, Top City Metal Supply understands the value of precision and cost efficiency. No more wasted materials, no more wasted money, just metal cut to the exact size you need. Top City Metal Supply, located on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field.
Christopher in our YouTube comments pointed this out a moment ago, and this is kind of hard to believe. The Chiefs, well, it's actually not that hard to believe. If you know about the history of the Chiefs and Royals, this probably sounds like, yeah, that sounds right. Chiefs and Royals have never made the postseason in the same sports calendar year.
That is wild.
Royals made it in 2014. The Chiefs played a playoff game in the calendar year 2014, but that was the 13 season.
One we just as soon forget.
Well, yes, that's also
that was the Andrew Luck game, if I remember right.
You are correct about that. So yeah, it kind of amazing to think about.
Well, I mean, the Royals didn't really exist in the golden era of Chiefs football there in the middle late 60s. The Royals came around in 69, and then Chiefs were pretty bummy through the 70s and 80s when the Royals were going good. And it's just never overlapped. Kind of interesting. Is this the golden era of Kansas City sports? It might be. We might be right in the middle of it.
What's your favorite Kings season?
File not found. 404 file not found.
Thoughts on the Arrows?
the Kansas City Scouts.
Yeah. I would have worn my Scouts hat today if I knew we would have gotten there.
Yeah, no kidding. Always nice when we can mention the Kansas City Scouts / Colorado Rockies / New Jersey Devils on the program. But anyway,
shout out to David Putty.
Let's get into it today with the Chiefs, who lost their preseason finale. And the two players that
so did everyone who watched. I'm sorry.
No,
dude, like I very rarely, if there's a game, even preseason, that I'm like, hey, I got to watch this for work, or I'm interested in seeing this. Very rarely do I spend the entire game like sitting on my phone, browsing Twitter or playing Minesweeper or whatever. Last night, it was genuinely hard for me to even pay attention. Like, it was so grisly awful.
No, I was struggling in the second half. Like, I missed the injury to the Bears player that necessitated the cart, the backboard. By all accounts, that player is doing well today. He's up and moving through.
Traveled back home.
Yes, traveled back with
Chicago.
Got back with Chicago. He's moving around. He's doing great. That's wonderful to see. Yeah, I missed that happen. Like, I was like, wow, this is a long commercial break. And I looked up and, they got the backboard out. Now I feel bad. It was one of those. It was very much a let's just get through this and get to the regular season sort of effort. But with all of, as we mentioned, the reserves out on the field, lots of guys whose futures, they're going to go pro in something other than sports here fairly soon, if you will. With that, the guys who are good players, like NFL caliber players, really stand out in the crowd. And there were two of those in particular for the Chiefs, and they were Jaden Hicks and Carson Steele. Jaden Hicks is going to be an impact player for the Chiefs defense. I think this year he's got a chance to be an impactful player, and certainly I think will make an impact as a special teams guy as well. But he seems to be what you're looking for in that third safety role, capable of covering, but also gets downhill, plays the run well, tackles really well. Looks like the Chiefs really have a nice find in Jaden Hicks. No question about that.
Yeah, he's a dude. He's got the coverage skills I thought were really on display last week in the game against the Lions. He had that nice breakup in the end zone, which I was really impressed by. He's got the tackling ability. He's got the nose to the ball. He's super smart. I made this comparison, I think, a week ago, maybe two, when we were talking about how the coaching staff is kind of weird about the way they talk about Felix Anudike-Uzomah. They talk about Jaden Hicks, and the talk around him is like he was a first-round pick. Like the expectation he's going to contribute right away, even if he's not a quote-unquote starter. He's going to be in almost every three safety set the Chiefs run this year. He's going to get some actual nickel corner coverage opportunities, I would assume. So I'm thrilled with what the Chiefs have in Jaden Hicks. There's a reason that Dane Brugler at The Athletic, who does an incredible job covering the draft, said he was one of the steals of the draft and couldn't believe he fell all the way to the fourth round. All good. I do not have any idea why he was playing as long as he did last night. And neither did any of my friends who are Chiefs fans. All of them were like, hey, why is he playing? There is nothing to gain from this. There is nothing to gain from him, like taking an angle to tackle Velus Jones in the flat. Like, there's no need for this. Get him out of the game.
Well, if you remember what Mitch Holthus told us yesterday at his training camp report, they wanted Hicks to play a lot last night because they want to see how he would do as a defensive leader, essentially. Yes. A shot caller. I didn't recognize if they put the green dot on him or not, but they gave him a lot of responsibility, and they wanted to see how he would handle it, and I think it's pretty clear that he passed that test with flying colors. Jaden Hicks, all systems go for him to be a contributor year one for the Chiefs. The other guy, I mean, it's obvious. Paul says he might be the real deal Carson Steele in the YouTube live comments. We went from thinking, wow, what a neat story. Carson Steele, fullback 1 on the depth chart, to, wait a minute, he actually carries the ball, runs it pretty good. Maybe he should be the third running back, to maybe he should just be the backup to Isaiah Pacheco. Maybe he should just be the secondary ball carrier for this team.
So I saw a lot yesterday on social media of, like, just move Steele from fullback to running back, go with him and Prince as your backups, get rid of Clyde. Like, there's no point in that. And we've heard the same. I mean, I have had that call to the void thought many times before. I think I said as much early in the preseason, and I know we've had a lot of you guys who have thought the same thing. There is a value to having a known commodity, especially if you want to give more touches and more opportunities to younger, unproven guys, even if you believe in them. And look, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire great? No. Is he even good? Honestly, probably not. Is he horrible? No. If you needed to rely on him for 10 carries in a game, he'd get you 3.5 yards a touch or whatever. Like, if he's your third running back, fine. Even second, okay, whatever. You're relying most of the time on your passing game. So I can understand keeping him around. But to be honest with you, if you said, hey, we're actually only going to keep 3 because we're going to keep 4 tight ends, we're going to keep 7 wide receivers, so only 3 total running backs or fullbacks, and one of those guys might split duties a little bit. Who would you rather have, Carson Steele or Derrick Prince? I would say, Derrick, get ready to learn practice squad, buddy, because I don't think he's been awful. He wasn't great yesterday, but I think Steele 100% has earned that, and I agree entirely. I do not think that's a fullback. I think that's a running back, and I know why the Chiefs have pegged him as a fullback, because he's big, he's strong, he's capable of doing those things, which is important, or at least they believe he is. He's a running back, man, and I think he's a pretty good one, and he's not exactly the same kind of runner that Isaiah Pacheco is. He's also not entirely different. Like, he's got a little bit more of that just straight line glide, but also he runs in kind of a nasty way. There's value to that. And I would rather give that guy 8 carries or 6 carries or whatever as a backup in a game than I would either Clyde or Derrick Prince.
Yeah, for me, he clearly looks like the second best running back on this team right now. He's got vision, speed. He makes guys miss. He makes guys slide off of him trying to tackle him. He's also really good on special teams. He had 3 special teams tackles last night. Like, he has done everything this coaching staff has asked of him.
Return kicks in a positive manner. That's one of the things that stood out to me in the game is that I think it feels as though, and there are still some special teams kinks that need to work out. Harrison Butker did not have a good night. I mean, who cares? It's Harrison Butker ain't going anywhere. He just signed that big deal. But I feel like the kick return has gotten a little bit more comfortable for the Chiefs. And I think we'll see more wrinkles, more things mixed in as the year goes on. I was coming up in my head with plays last night for kick returns that I thought were going to work out because that was more fun than the game itself. But Carson Steele, kick the ball to him, catch it in the landing zone, run forward at full speed. That worked pretty well. That's not a horrible way to approach it. You can do a lot with him. Use him, man. Like that. To quote Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports, who was sharing clips of Carson Steele last night during the game, that ain't no fullback. No, that is a running back. You can use him in some fullback spots. Fine. That is a running back. And I don't think you're going overboard here. That's RB2 to me. And maybe he doesn't start there on the official depth chart. That's RB2.
I want to be sensitive to Clyde Edwards-Helaire's situation. Like maybe it's an IR situation. Maybe there's a roster exemption that can be made for him while he recovers from what he is dealing with right now. But there is no reason that he should be above Carson Steele on the depth chart. I really believe moving forward. Carson Steele won himself a job. And man, listen, he's a undrafted white running back with long hair and a pet alligator and a cool last name. Carson Steele jerseys are going to do Bobby Witt Jr. at the K numbers.
You won't be able to go 5 feet in Belton, Missouri without seeing one.
Every section at Arrowhead is going to have somebody in a number 42 Carson Steele jersey.
But the thing is, it's not like he's a joke. He's not.
No,
you can make jokes about the personality or the style or
you think he's a joke,
whatever you want,
but
he's good.
Yeah.
He can play. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I understand why he didn't get drafted out of UCLA. They were kind of disappointed on the stretch, and there were other good running backs this year. Go back and watch some of the highlights from when he was at Ball State, man. He was awesome. And it's the MAC. All right, Bama fans, calm down. There's good football everywhere. He could really go as the entire offense for that Ball State Cardinals team 2 years ago. So I'm all in on giving him. It doesn't have to be huge. I'm not saying give the dude Pacheco's touches or anything, but he should be a part of the offense, even if it is a small one.
I don't see how he isn't. I think we heard Matt Nagy 2-3 weeks ago say this is the guy you can trust out of his mouth. And that was before we saw what he was capable of in preseason games. So I do think Carson Steele has earned himself not just a spot on the 53, but a decent role as well. It was not a great night for everybody. Certainly some backups had a rough go. Jalen Watson was downright bad. His first game action. You could tell the Chiefs were trying to get some guys heavy reps that are injured, that are going to play a role on the team. Like I watched second half of last night. I was like, wait a minute, is that Derrick Nottie?
Yeah, Derrick Nottie got a lot of run.
Derrick Nottie played a lot. Like he played like a regular season game's worth of snaps. And look, he's a starter who needs to get up to speed and get his game legs. And I understand that. Jalen Watson, kind of the same thing. Watson, like Nottie, you noticed. Nottie was another guy that, like, in the second half, I was like, oh, yeah, that's Derrick Nottie. Like, yes, this is obviously a 6-year starter going up against undrafted rookies. Like, he's moving people around, and he's always around the ball. Like, that's a different kind of guy. Jalen Watson, though, that was not a good showing.
So it's preseason, so you can spin this a couple of different ways. You can look at it straight up that, hey, man, this guy is competing for a starting cornerback job, and he stunk. He was not very good, and that is really worrisome. And that better mean that Josh Williams is locked in, no doubt, going to be your CB2. Though, if you wanted to look at the silver linings, if you wanted to give it the optimistic spin, he hasn't played. He hasn't done anything all camp. He's been so banged up.
Got to get your game laid.
Exactly. You want to just get him in there to get game reps. I think the whole, you want your starters to play so it feels like a normal game. Nothing feels normal about doing a half-ass warm-up and then going through one series as a starting quarterback. Like, that's not normal, no matter how much you want to pretend it is. But for a guy like Watson, who does need to actually hit someone and tackle someone in a neutered, sanitized environment, I can understand why he maybe wasn't truly up to speed. That also, though, even if you want to use that optimistic spin, that tells me I don't want him starting in 2 weeks against Baltimore.
No.
I want him playing because I still think he's a better option than most guys you have, but I don't want him to get 65% of the snaps.
No.
I want him at like 40%. Because at this point, I think you have to trust Joshua Williams more, even if he also has not been especially convincing.
A lot more Chiefs to get to this hour, and change my mind. I'm going to ask Brendan if I'm overreacting to last night's game. We're also going to have Matt Derrick join us in about 10 minutes, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. But when we come back, Creed Humphrey got paid, P-A-I-D, last night. May it rain, Creed. Creed is good. Creed works. We'll talk about him next as we get things rolling from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. .330 on 580 Sports Talk. The Kansas City Chiefs took Creed Humphrey's salary higher last night. News that broke right after we went off the air and right before the Chiefs kicked off last night against the Bears. Creed Humphrey has become the highest paid center in NFL history. 4-year, $72 million contract extension, including $50 million guaranteed.
Yeah, let's not underplay this. He's the new highest paid center in league history by a lot. This is not like last offseason when, and I don't remember the exact order, but it was like Jalen Hurts and then Lamar Jackson. Like they just kind of one-upped each other by like $500,000 or $100,000 or something every time. And the guys all got the same value, essentially just slightly raised. This is truly resetting the market. This is $12 million more in terms of total value, the 72, more than the previous high, which was Eric McCoy, who got $60 million 2 years ago with New Orleans Saints. And it's way up in terms of guarantees by $8 million or more than what Frank Ragnow of the Detroit Lions signed with his last contract. So this is truly a market resetting deal. And good. He's the best center in the NFL. His pass block win rate, hold your block for 2.5 seconds, ESPN's pass blocking metric, 98.1% for Creed Humphrey over the last 3 years. That means of all the snaps he has played, I need to get the exact number of snaps that Creed Humphrey has played. Of all of the pass blocking snaps that he has played in his 3-year career, which is a grand total of, okay, so he's played 3,413 total snaps. The Chiefs throw it, 70% of the time?
Yeah.
So roughly. Let's estimate 70% of the time. In 2,389 snaps in his career, he has won his individual matchup on all but 46 of them.
That's pretty impressive.
He has made Patrick Mahomes nearly untouchable up the middle. And does it help to have Tooney? Does it help to have Smith? Yes, obviously. Those guys are Pro Bowl to all pro caliber players. Duh. But Creed is that dude. It is a sham that he is only a one-time second-team All-Pro. It's a sham, frankly. And I think he's the best center in the league, and this was a no-brainer.
Yeah, a no-brainer. And again, the kind of money that's not going to make it restrictive if you want to do some more contract extensions on the offensive line, like Trey Smith, potentially. The Chiefs have been vocal about wanting to keep both of them in Kansas City for the long term, and they got one half of the equation done with the Creed Humphrey extension. We're going to get Matt Derrick's thoughts on it after this timeout. Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. In just a moment, we'll be joined by Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. In fact, that moment is now. Matt Derrick joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, as he does every Friday at this time. Again, you can read his work at ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. And Matt, I think the best thing we can all agree to say about the preseason is that it is over.
It is, yes. Fantastic preseason, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Spectacular. Winning.
Yes. 0-3. Many are saying the dynasty is crumbling after an 0-3 preseason. Not us, but many people. Many people are saying. What did you take away, if anything, from the 60 minutes of football last night? What was the one thing maybe you looked at from the preseason finale against the Bears and felt like, yeah, this is going to have something to do with what we see out there when the regular season begins?
I mean, outside of maybe Carson Steele, not much. I mean, you got to see a lot of backups that are going to play. I mean, there's a few of them. And even offensively, I mean, I think Mecole Hardman, is going to play, a little bit. You got to see, and I think Hardman fits into this category. You got to see some players that are going to be backups who just aren't going to get as many snaps as they could get last night. So that's one thing. I mean, and defensively, I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be backups on this team who played a little bit last night. So, hey, they may only play like maybe 5 snaps or 12 snaps a game down the road, but they were able to get maybe 30, 40 last night. And that's big because they just need the experience. I think outside of Carson Steele, there's a few others like Jalen Watson just needed to get some reps to knock off some of the rust. I think you're hoping in a couple of weeks he's going to look a little bit smoother than he did last night, but that's maybe just the first step that he needed to take in order to get there with his progress.
Which player, if any, and we'll set Carson Steele aside here because I think he was on the track to make the team even before his performance last night, but which player did the most to help themselves earn a 53-man roster spot last night?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I don't know that there was a lot of movement or change. I think that the Chiefs probably I know the Chiefs had a better idea who was going to be on their 53 than we had. I would imagine they had a 53 set going into last night's game. Question to me, was there anybody that I thought really dramatically changed it so that maybe they've gone from off the team to on it? I don't know. I don't know if there was anybody that really did it. At the same time, I'm not sure there was anybody that played their way off either. To me, the biggest battle at this point, I guess position-wise, would just be trying to sort out who your 5th, 6th, 7th kind of cornerbacks are. Not that a 7th cornerback's going to make it, but just kind of where your roster is and who your depth chart is going to be as far as maybe a practice squad player, how Keith Taylor and Kelvin Joseph kind of sort themselves out there. And then it's going to be a lot of just deciding, because as Steve Spagnuolo put this week, I mean, for him on the defensive side, he just wants the best 25 players. And if that's 5 linebackers and 10 defensive linemen and 10 defensive backs, whether it's 6 corners and 4 safeties or 5 and 5, those are the decisions that they've really got to make. I mean, I don't think that outside of cornerback, there's a lot of debate about the order of the depth chart at each position, but there's going to be a lot of, I think, consternation at the end of just trying to pick out, how many wide receivers are you going to keep? How many, tight ends? How many running backs? Offensive linemen? That's the decisions that are going to be tough over the next couple of days to sort out.
Did Kadarius Toney save his job last night?
I don't know. I thought there was a chance that I would be saying that in the first half, and there was even some comments in the press box as he was making a couple of those catches in the first half that was, hey, how can you leave Kadarius Toney off this 53-man roster? And then, you saw him just stand there waiting for a pass instead of trying to make a play and getting a big gain knocked away by a great play by a safety. And you go back to, well, that's why Kadarius Toney is such an enigma. It's just those little tiny things that he doesn't do and sometimes blocks that he misses. And I don't know. I mean, I can't, based on what we have seen during training camp, the preseason games, I can't give you a compelling reason why Kadarius Toney should be on the 53. I know that you still believe in him. I know that there's still a lot of fans in that organization. Is there enough support to keep him on the 53? I don't know. I think there's less support. I certainly get the sense that there's less support than there was maybe 3 months ago or 6 months ago for Kadarius Toney. And, and some of it, hey, is that other guys have stepped up. I think McCole Hardman has really given it all during training camp in the preseason. I think Sky Moore has done it all. Justin Ross still has some warts, but I think he's, at least given you a lot on the try hard chart. I'm just not sure that you can say the same thing about Kadarius Toney all the time.
Bruce Weber is so excited about that. We're talking to Matt Derrick.
Yeah, that still just finds my way into my lexicon on a regular basis.
Matt Derrick is our guest, our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. Go over there to check out all of his great work. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. Joins us every Friday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for our Chiefs insider. You mentioned Sky Moore a moment ago, Matt, and I know we talked about him last week as well, and you said that you were feeling pretty good that he was going to make this roster out of a long offseason of many of us assuming he was cooked because, man, he really was not good this past season. Though, the more we've heard from you, we heard it from Mitch Holthus yesterday, that we've heard that he's kind of had a good camp, and they were confident enough in him. He didn't play yesterday. He was one of the guys who didn't even have to dress and get in the game. Are you surprised by even how much of a lock he is to make this roster?
Yes and no. I mean, I am in the sense that, the evidence is there. I mean, watching during training camp, watching the last couple of weeks of practices, that's been the case. I mean, it's just been an indication about where he is on the depth chart, how this team thinks of him and how they treat him. I mean, it's pretty clear. At the same time, like you said, I mean, there's still some things that you look at and think of that you're not entirely sure just how much faith that the fans have. I mean, I think that once again, it's another player where the organization has a tremendous amount of faith, but outside the organization, it's less so.
Let's get to some of the other personnel news for the Chiefs. Yesterday, reported that Creed Humphrey is going to be the highest paid center in NFL history by a substantial margin, Matt, blowing out the previous records for total value and full guarantees as well. 4 years, $72 million total, $50 million guaranteed. I mean, was this a complete no-brainer, or did they have to take in the front office like 3 seconds to actually discuss it?
Yeah, at that value, I think it was a complete no-brainer. It's a big number. I mean, especially when you compare it to other centers around the league. I mean, obviously, it blows the market out of the water. But at the same time, I mean, if there's anybody that you're going to blow the market out of the water for, it's this guy. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So no, it doesn't surprise me. And when I'd heard that Creed was interested and wanted, guard money, that's the money he was really looking at. He wasn't looking at the center market. He was looking at the guards and saying, I need to be paid like a guard. Well, if he was being paid like the number one guard and needed to be paid $21 million a year, that might have some heartburn for this team. But at 18, I mean, can you say Creed Humphrey's worth it? Absolutely. I mean, is he worth being paid like the number, top 6, top 10 guards in the league? Absolutely. I mean, and look at like a deal for Quinn Miners. He has almost the exact deal. I mean, there's going to be a few discrepancies, I'm sure, when we get the little details and everything. But I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, hey, if you're paying those two guys the exact same money, which one do you think is the better value? I think it's Creed Humphrey.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. But speaking of guards, how much does this impact, if it impacts at all, the future of trying to work out a new deal with Trey Smith going forward?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think you could make a case that this is a good deal for that particular aspect of it because, if you're Trey Smith, are you going to be comfortable asking for more money than what Creed Humphrey's making? I mean, I think that would be hard to do. And especially if you're Trey Smith and the Chiefs and you're looking for a deal right now. And if Trey wants to kind of take some of the risk of waiting until March and seeing if he gets through a year-long deal, how that works. I mean, that to me is, that's got to be a part of the equation for him. I mean, you're going to be sacrificing a little bit of money if you're looking for the security right now rather than betting on yourself and seeing where you are in March. Because that's the upside, is that if Trey Smith were to reach March with another good year, a healthy year, maybe improves a little bit in pass protection, he can be a 21, 22, $23 million player. I mean, I've heard some speculation that maybe he could even get to 24, 25, the way that the guard market is exploding right now. But, I mean, can the Chiefs justify paying Trey Smith more than Creed Humphrey? I don't know. I mean, and that would be, I think the more difficult part is that if Trey's got his set self on being at the top of the guard market, can the Chiefs do that? No. But could the Chiefs offer a very comparable deal that they offered the Creed? I think they can afford that. And I think there's a chance that Trey might agree to that.
We're joined by our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick, on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Matt, much was made early in the week during media availability when talking to Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo about that second cornerback position. Do you think there was any movement this week, or is there a real possibility of by committee, like I believe we heard Andy Reid say during his press conference?
I mean, that's where you certainly feel like this is set right now, and especially if you see the evidence that has been kind of behind the scenes the last couple of weeks that maybe Trent McDuffie is going to end up playing more of a nickel type role, or at least a slot role, than playing outside as much, and maybe he'll just kick outside like he did in specific situations. That's going to be, I think, the key question. And if that's the case, then the Chiefs are going to have two guys playing on the outside. But right now, I mean, Jalen Watson looks like he's in position to be, at least for now, the number 2 corner, because you've got Josh Williams and Najee Johnson, who are both dealing with hamstring injuries. After that, you've got some questions about, is Keith Taylor your best corner? Is it Kelvin Joseph? Is it somebody else? Or if you're the Chiefs, are you going to be spending this weekend watching games across the league, looking at corners and seeing if there's somebody that is on the cut line of another team that you can pick up to give you some depth or even an upgrade that you think you could make a deal for? That's the one. I think that position and defensive end are the two spots, particularly with this team, is going to be looking at the waiver wire. They're going to be looking at the trade market to see if there's somebody that they might be able to pick up that will help them.
Staying in the secondary, saw a lot of Jaden Hicks last night. What do you think he can be for this team? Because he showed a lot of potential and flash last night.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what they have to ask him to do. If they have to ask him to be a stud player, and starting, that's going to be a tall task. But I think he's up for it eventually. I mean, there's no doubt this guy's going to be a starter next year. I think you see why the Chiefs drafted him, knowing that Justin Reed's going to be a free agent next year. This kid is absolutely capable of being a starter next year. I think I'm with Louis Riddick. I think he's a potential star in this league. Now, the Chiefs don't want to put too much on his plate this year. They wanted to have him in a specific role and ask him to do specific things, not put too much pressure on him. But so far, I haven't seen any evidence that this kid's swimming around. He seems to get everything. He understands things. He has never appeared lost at any point in all of this. And they've put him in a lot of different spots. I think Spags really said he's playing about 4 different spots for them right now, between free, strong, slot, and dime linebacker. And I haven't seen him have an issue with any of it.
Matt, we got about 1 minute here. The Chiefs are the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions, so they've got mostly champagne problems, which are not problems at all. But if there's one thing that you took from the preseason and from training camp that you think might be of a concern to the Chiefs as they head to week 1, what would that be?
I mean, I think it's depth at a couple of places, but I think that the offensive line depth was exposed a little bit. I still think that if the Chiefs had to play with Wanya Morris, a healthy Wanya Morris for a while, I think they would be fine. I think if they had to play with a Mike Caliendo or a Hunter Norzad for a few games, I think they would be fine. I'm just would be a little concerned if they had a couple of injuries that they had to deal with in the offensive line, because that could be a little bit of an Achilles heel. I'm not sure that they're as strong as they were last year. Certainly, when they had Nick Allegretti that you knew could handle 3 positions on the inside with ease. Everybody's a year older. Joe Tooney is a year older. You don't know what you have for sure with Kingsley, even though you feel pretty good there. That's the one position where I think you'd be concerned. And I threw in defensive end. I mean, I'm going to echo that. I just don't think that the Chiefs have the 5 defensive ends right now that they want going into the season.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. You can read his latest rosterology, 53-player roster projection on the website today. Go and do that. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. You can hear him every Friday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, always a pleasure. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Dan. Take care, my friend.
That is Matt Derrick. We'll take a break, come back with a quick round of Change My Mind after this on 580 Sports Talk. All right, real quick, changed my mind, guys. The play of the Chiefs reserves this preseason has made me feel like there might be less depth on this Chiefs team than either of the last two Super Bowl winning seasons. Am I overreacting?
Maybe slightly, but only in a practical sense. Because the backup offensive line has not been very good.
No.
That has been a legitimate concern. Wide receiver, probably a little bit better, although you're talking about a lower floor, just like slightly higher ceiling, not garbage like last season.
Right.
Well, here's what it comes down to for me, though, because I saw this when Green Bay scored 0 points offensively against Denver last week. Like, oh my God, our depth is so bad. If anyone gets hurt, we're screwed. You're not going to have 22 players get hurt all at the same time.
This is
like,
probably true.
Like Wanye Morris is at a bad training camp. He's at a bad preseason. There's really no getting around it. But you know what would help if Kingsley got hurt and you had to play Wanye Morris for a game? He's got an all-pro and maybe a member of the all-2020s team next to him on the offensive line and Joe Thuney. So in terms of the actual quality of play, I do think you're onto something. But in terms of the, oh no, the sky is falling, we have no good backups, a lot of those warts get covered up when they're playing with guys who are going to be all pros.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the greatness of the starters and the guys that directly play in rotation outweighs, I think, the lower depth that it appears they have.
That's just my thought. Like, it wasn't a great preseason for the second unit, and made for some pretty grim football, particularly last night.
I said last night, the Bears went undefeated. The Chiefs went winless in the preseason. Certainly, that is how the regular season will go as well.
The Jayhawker in the YouTube comments doesn't think I'm overreacting, for what that's worth. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. We got another hour of 580 Sports Talk. We're talking Royals in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio next.
Patriots, the trusted preparedness company, is offering listeners of this station a special buy one, get two free deal on its best-selling 72-hour survival food kits. This new and improved kit has 20 servings of delicious food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all designed to last for 25 years. It sells for $29 and has been rated 4.4 stars by thousands of happy customers. When you act quickly and buy one kit, you will get two more kits absolutely free. That's 3 kits for the price of one. $58 in free food. Go to freefood1.com. That's freefood1.com. This deal won't last. Go to freefood1.com now.
The Kansas Department of Transportation and the Drive to Zero Coalition invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always designate a sober driver.
The climb in temperatures and the humidity levels across our area straight through the weekend and into early next week. Only one small wind chance for rain. And we're dry this evening, and we may see a few showers and thunderstorms trying to drift our way as the night goes on. Our low at 75 degrees. See some clearing by Saturday afternoon. That high soaring up to 95. Heat index 105. And plenty of sunshine for Sunday and Monday. Highs upper 90s. I'm meteorologist Jeff Lamore from the Capital Federal Weather Center.
This is the voice of Kansas, WIBW Topeka.
Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Friday afternoon. Dan Lucero, Brennan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis with you. Glad to be with you. Thanks for hanging out with us, making us a part of your Friday afternoon on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, 580WIBW.com. And on our video stream, the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. The Facebook page, I guess, not really a channel, a page, is WIBW News. Great to be with you. We've got some more Chiefs to get to a little bit later on in the show today. We'll talk about the NFL's coaching staffs. Ben Solak ranked them for ESPN. We'll rank them for 580 Sports Talk. We'll also hear from Mitch Holthus, a final training camp report of the preseason coming up at 5:25. A training camp report from Mitch Holthus brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. But folks, we open this hour talking some baseball, and we encourage you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from Royals fans this segment. Top City Mail Supply text line is open, 785-272-9429. Can also interact in the YouTube live chat if you are indeed watching the live stream right now. You can chat with other listeners and with the hosts of this show. You can also comment if you're watching on the Facebook feed as well. Again, that page is WIBW News. I think it was friend of the program, David Lesky, the Inside the Crown newsletter, who first referred to this upcoming 20 games in 20 days stretch for the Royals as the Gauntlet. And I've seen it in other places now to the point where the last time I saw Lesky tweet about it, he used a little trademark after Gauntlet, just to let everybody know he was there first. And he was. So credit where it's due to David Lesky for coming up with the name for this stretch.
We've got to use a gauntlet.
Yes, not the Gauntlet. This is a Gauntlet. But it is far from the first one that the Royals have had to run this year. It's just the most recent, and by virtue of its timing on the schedule and what's at stake and where the Royals sit in the standings, it's the most important one. But we were having a very similar conversation at the very end of May, on the May 31st edition of 580 Sports Talk. We looked ahead and saw 29 games for the Royals, basically the entire month of June, that was going to be a defining stretch for them. Now, they ended up only playing 28 of those games because they got rained out in Cleveland. One of those games that will, in fact, be played on Monday, a Monday afternoon affair in Cleveland to open up what is now a 4-game series against the Central leading Guardians. Of those 28 games, 20 of them were against a team with a winning record. I guess 19 of them were against a team who at the time had a winning record. And we all agreed, all of us, we were all in agreement. The Royals could go 500 in that stretch. That would probably be fine. They had staked themselves to a nice record the first 2 months of the season. In fact, let me go and find what their record was on May 31st. Going into that opening game of the series against the Padres, the Royals were 35-23. They were in second place in the Central. They were 3 games out of first place, 3 games back of Cleveland at the time, 12 games over 500. And we said, you know what? They play 500 ball through this stretch. That is A-okay. That will be sufficient. If they go 15-14, 14-15, if they play well against Cleveland in that stretch, take care of the series they're supposed to take care of. If they struggle in LA against the Dodgers, or if they have some trouble with the Yankees for 4 games at the K, yeah, that would be understandable. But 500 ball will be fine. Do you guys remember what the Royals' record was in that stretch? 28 games.
This
Was it 13-15?
That's too generous by 1 win. They were 12-16.
I know I was close.
Yeah.
They were 12-16 in that stretch. And the funny thing was, they accomplished maybe the most important thing in that stretch, which was they won more than they lost against Cleveland. They ended up ahead of the Guardians in the sense that they took 4 out of the 6 games. They split what ended up being a 2-game series because you had the rain out in Cleveland at the beginning of the month. Never forget that one. The getaway day game was the day my son was born, so I remember that one pretty vividly. But then they came back around at the end of the month. Cleveland was in Kansas City for 4, and the Royals took 3 out of 4 in that series. So they got 4 out of 6 against Cleveland. And the problem was they struggled everywhere else. They were 2-7 on their road trip. They had a big 9-game road trip in the middle of the month, and they lost 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers, which, okay, sure. Then they lost 2 out of 3 to Oakland, which was pretty inexplicable, and then got swept by Texas. And remember, that series got really grim. The Royals didn't score a run that weekend. Saturday, Sunday at Globe Life Field, they didn't score a run. They got shut out Saturday and Sunday, and at that point, they had dropped to 42-37. And after losing to Miami in the second game of 3 on June 25th, the Royals were only 5 games above 500, and they were 10 games out of first place at that time. That is the closest. I don't think they've been any closer to the 500 mark since then. 5 games above has been the low water mark for the Royals since, and they are back now, of course, at 71-56 to a record that matches their high water mark above 500 this season, 15 games over.
Yeah, they did tie 5 again shortly thereafter. If I had the date right in front of me, yeah, they were 43-38.
Yeah, they lost because they lost the series to Tampa right after the Cleveland series, and then they lost the first 2 in Colorado.
Yes, so after that 3-1 loss to Colorado, when Seth Lugo was out-dueled by Austin Gomber, they were 5 games over at 48-43. Since that point, the Kansas City Royals are, if I can do some math here, 22-13.
Wow. Not too shabby. Been one of the best teams in baseball, and they have made up 7 games on first place since July 6th. They were 9 out after that loss. They are just 2 out as they open this stretch.
Well, I know we know this part of the schedule is difficult, but just to kind of hammer home how difficult it is, in those 20 games, they will play 5 teams, including 2 series against the Guardians, which is obviously massive. Those teams include 3 of the 4 best records in all of baseball. The Yankees are 2nd, the Phillies are 3rd, the Guardians are 4th, and again, they've got 7 games against the Guardians, including 7 in a 10-day stretch. The Twins have the 8th best record in Major League Baseball, and the Astros, who now lead their division and are going to win the AL West, they have the only 11th best record. Nobody has been better in the last 20 games. They have 14 wins in the last 20 games. No one has been better.
I think if you go back to like May, they're the best team in the American League.
You might be correct about that. I just had the expanded stats out to the last 10, 20, 30. But I think you might be correct about that total number as well.
So I have I've got the May 1st. Since May 1st, the Houston Astros have the best record in the American League by a full 3.5 games. They're 59-38 since May 1st. New York, Minnesota, Baltimore, Cleveland, like the teams you'd expect, but like Houston has been the best team in the American League after April. By the way, you know the best team in the National League has been since then? Arizona.
That's what they do.
Go figure. Anyhow.
Like 4 games back, the Dodgers.
So this 20-game stretch has one thing not in common with that 29-game stretch in June is there are no breathers in these next 20 games. There's no series with Oakland that on paper was a breather. Royals ended up losing 2 out of 3 at the Coliseum. There's no Miami, right? Royals got 2 out of 3 from Miami at home in that stretch. Like, there's no breathers here. You've got 3 against the National League East leaders. You've got 4 against the Central leaders, 4 against the West leaders. All those are on the road. Then 3 at home against the Central leaders again, 3 against the team you're tied with in the Central as of today, and 3 against the East leaders. These are all division-leading teams on deck for these next 20 games. As scheduling goes, this is gnarly. Like, there's no doubt. This is a nasty stretch of baseball.
What is the one thing the Royals have to be great at to get to, let's say, at least 11-9? Because we started like, hey, 20 games, can you go 10-10? I was actually just talking to Trenton Craxner about this earlier today. Like, can you get through it 10-10? You're pretty much in the playoffs as long as you can do that. Let's say to make this a positive stretch, to have a winning record, 11-9 or better, what do the Royals have to be great at? Because there's one thing that stands out to me above anything else.
The thing they have to be great at is the thing that they've been best at throughout is they need to get quality starting pitching.
Okay. That's exactly what I was going to say too, because this feels like a playoff simulation to a degree. This feels like, hey, there are not going to be any days off when you get to October. And for the record, I do believe this team is going to be playing in October this year. There are not going to be easy games because those easy games are against teams that gave up on their October dreams in May and June. Like, there's no White Sox, right, in October, except watching the games from home or, sending text messages from their hotel in Cabo. That's the only involvement the White Sox are going to have in baseball in the month of October. So you're not going to have any off days. I am a believer, and I think this is a fairly old school belief, but it is truly what I think. The single most important thing in the postseason is pitching, is starting pitching specifically. Bullpens have become more important really because of the 14 and 15 Royals and how dominant that bullpen was. And then teams with more money and better rosters saying, well, we can do that. We'll just do the same thing. And it has actually made certain playoff games far less watchable. Like, stop pulling your starter after 4.
Dog, I hated watching the Diamondbacks last year after they got past Gallen and Kelly in the rotation, because every other game was, we're going to start Joe Mantiply, and he's going to get 4 outs, and then we're going to nickel and dime it from there.
Man, I even remember, you go back to 2016.
That makes me, when we get bullpen games in the playoffs, that really makes me feel like Mark Jackson. What happened to the game I love? You
even go back to the 2016 World Series, and I know, oh my God, Brandon's talking about 2016 World Series again. But seriously, thank God for my sake, the Cubs ended up winning. Kyle Hendricks started that game for the Cubs, and there was a lot of talk going into it, like, hey, John Lester is going to pitch in this game. We are going to throw John Lester at some point because if you have him, why wouldn't you use him? Kyle Hendricks was really good through 4 2/3 innings. 4 hits, 2 runs, only one of them earned. He had struck out a couple, which he didn't do ever. He was cruising after an iffy start. They pulled him at 4 2/3. He's doing great. Leave him in the game. And the playoffs have been like that ever since. But I still believe, because you mentioned even with the Diamondbacks last year, after Gallen and Kelly, you know what the Diamondbacks had? 2 really good 1 2 starting pitchers.
So that you could keep your powder dry in the bullpen when you had to do the ham and egg bullpen game. They could do it because they were getting 6, 7 plus from Gallen and Kelly.
And just like I said to you or asked you about the other day, when I said, what team in the American League scares you? Like, outside of back-to-back batters being Soto and Judge, like, what is there that you go, oh my God, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how we're going to stop this. I don't really think there is anything. The closest thing might be the fact that the Royals can go anywhere from 3 to 4 starters deep. Now, that requires Brady Singer to have the good version of himself, which we have seen more often than not, and I think he gets credit for that. But if a team stacks lefties against him, figure it out, Brady. Like, you've got to figure it out at that point. You need Michael Wacha to be good, older pitcher later in his career. You need Lugo to be able to hold up, Reagans to have one of his high-velocity games. You need those things to all work. But I think if you can rely on those guys to be what they have been for you over the course of this year, this is a series of games the Royals can win plenty of. I think they can get 11, at least 10. I think they can get 11 wins or more in this stretch, just like I think they can ride that even more than they need to ride Bobby Witt Jr., plus Salvi, plus Vinny. I think they can ride this starting pitching in the postseason. But this is a great test of that. Can these guys carry you through this stretch, this gauntlet, Dave, of a schedule for the next 20 games? I think they can, and I think that's going to be the most important thing to see from them.
I have a hypothetical question here as we break up the remaining games. So we've broken up this 20-game stretch, and then there's a 15-game stretch to end the season. If they go 500 in this 20-game stretch, so that's 10 wins, and then they go one game under 500, so that would be 7 and 8. Is 88 wins enough to still have a wild card spot?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Unequivocally, yes. Yes.
Because right now, with the Royals 4 games clear of Boston in the wild card hunt,
It would only be a big question if they played each other, probably.
and I got to do some math here.
So they would have to, like, if the Royals went 17 and 18 here in these 35 games, which is what Spencer is proposing, the Red Sox would have to go 21
and 11
to
get to 88 wins.
And that would be like the hottest stretch of their season.
Yeah.
That's hard to make that math work, particularly. Let's look at who Boston's got to play here down the stretch. They got to deal with Arizona starting tonight, who's been, again, the best team in the National League since May. They've got to play a Mets team that's fighting for their playoff lives. They've got to play Baltimore. They got to go to New York for 4. They got to play Minnesota in the second to last weekend of the season.
Sounds like a Howard Dean speech.
Yeah, dude. We're going to Chicago, and we're going to... Anyway,
and we're going to Cancun for spring break.
So it's not an easy stretch by any means for Boston. And to say, okay, if the Royals win 17 of their final 35, that's what would have to happen for them to miss the playoffs. Boston would have to win 21 of their final. Do we have the math right? 21
out of 36.
21 and 15. 21 and 15.
Yeah. Okay. So the math was way wrong.
That seems doable, though, right?
No, 21 and 13. Again,
okay,
no.
They have 30. They've played 126 games. They have 36 left.
Yeah, you're right. 21 and 15.
So they would need to go 21 and 15.
That seems more doable than the number that you gave before.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
I have joined the club that Dan is in. I don't think the Red Sox are that good, to be honest with you. I really don't.
I don't either. I just like.
I see what you're saying.
Like, is there a way that they go under 500 like that and still like right around the number of 500? And
well,
they
yeah.
don't
I mean, yeah, because if they go, what would
they
that
go
be?
Way under 500, yeah.
That would be 17 and 18.
Yeah.
They could go one game under and still force the Red Sox to have to be 6 over against a challenging schedule. Yeah, this is often a kiss of death on this program and has been for many years. I think the Royals are in. Like, I know
that's
the
where I was going
built.
with that without saying it. I was trying to say it, but not say it.
I think that is enough cushion, and it's really only Boston. It's only Boston and the Twins. And of those 3, Royals, Twins, Red Sox, 2 of them are going to get in because I don't think the Rays have enough juice to get there. The Rays would need to win something like 25 games if the Royals had a stretch like that. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening for them. So we're at a 20-game stretch that is going to be crucial. But I hesitate to say that it's going to be defining. Our friend Jay Hawker on the YouTube live chat says, by September 12th, we'll know if the Royals are for real. Do you know who has the best record in the American League since the All-Star break?
Is it the Royals?
It's the Kansas City Royals. 19-11 since the All-Star break. They're 71 and 56. Got the second best record second best run differential in baseball. They've scored 618 runs. They scored 110 more runs than they've allowed. Second best run differential in all of baseball. We are 127 games into this season. They're good. We can say that definitively. There is no question. Like, back at the end of May, I think we still had some questions, right? Like, okay, when they did get hot, there was like, yeah, they had swept the White Sox and maybe they had a bit of a friendly schedule the first couple of months. And they were still like had that 56 win or 58 win, how many wins it was. Like, I don't even remember anymore. They had that 2023 Royals stink on them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that month of June felt like a proving ground. That felt like when we were going to find out, okay, is this team really, really real?
Mm-hmm.
We got 127 games of evidence now. They're good. What this will prove, if anything, is what it could look like in the postseason. This feels like, well, I mean, if they go like 6-14 in this stretch, they play their way out of it. Like, I would be very surprised if that happened. But I think that if they are able to hold their water in this stretch, we're going to see what it would look like for them in a playoff series. We're going to see what it would look like for them in a hostile environment, in must-win games. It's going to be a first time for a lot of these young players, but, you know, they've added some guys to this roster who know what it's like. Salvador Perez, the captain, he knows what it's like to play in high-stakes baseball games. So I think the point at which the burden of proof is on the Royals to prove that they're a good team, I think we're well past that. The Royals are good. I'm ready to firmly plant my flag on that. We have 127 games worth of evidence. That's plenty big enough a sample for me. These 20 games, though, are going to show me how ready are they for the crucible of October baseball. Because if you play well enough here, and well enough could be 10-10, 11-9. It could be even 9-11 or 8-12, to be honest with you, depending on which 8 are the 8 that you win. They play well enough during this stretch, they're going to prove that they're ready for October baseball, that the bright lights aren't going to be too bright for them when they get there. That's where we're going to have our prove it moment with the Royals here in these next 20.
And I don't want to give an escape and make this like super Pollyanna or anything and absolve the Royals of any potential reason for their demise when the season does eventually end. But I think you also, I can understand the logic behind saying, well, if the Royals are winning, they get to the playoffs, but then they play whoever in the postseason who is considered to be a better team, and they end up losing it. Was it a fluke? Were they actually that good? Were they good enough against good teams? I think even that you have to take on a case-by-case basis, because let's say they play Baltimore in the postseason. I don't know what the standings would have to look like for that to happen. I don't even really think I know all the rules of the new postseason format, but whatever. Let's say they play Baltimore in the postseason, a team that has been considered one of the 2 or 3 best in the American League all year long. And the Orioles beat them. The Orioles sweep them. Okay? They sweep them.
It's a big hypothetical because they're lacking big leadership.
Well, yes. But hypothetical here. Okay, they play the Yankees. Let's make it that way. And the Yankees win every game like 3-1 and have no extra base hits the entire series. They just do nothing but hit seeing eye singles like the entire series. Nothing but soft contact. Does that suddenly mean like, oh, this Royals team wasn't actually good at this point? Or is that just, wow, that sucks?
That's what that is that is October baseball.
And that's the thing that is annoying about Major League Baseball and following it, is because dumb stuff like that happens more than any other sport. Generally speaking, in a football game, there are flukes that happen, but generally speaking, not that. Like, there's no such thing as, like, what is football's equivalent of 4 singles on soft contact in a row? Like 3 field goals that hit the upright and bounce in? Like that doesn't happen in other sports.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like a college basketball team that just goes ballistic from 3 that usually isn't any good. Like Eastern Washington against KU in 2021. Like maybe that is what you would consider it. Like that is baseball more than it's anything else. And again, I'm not trying to absolve the Royals of anything they might get wrong, because maybe we get to the playoffs, they play the Yankees, and they look like crap. And Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans and Michael Wacha get battered all over the yard. Bobby Witt has 1 hit in 3 games. They suck and it's over. And you go, wow, that was ugly. We don't know what that's going to look like. My general overall point is just that I think you kind of have to take it on a case-by-case basis, and you can only judge it based on the data we have. And as you pointed out, we have 127 games against crappy teams, mediocre teams, and good teams, and the vast majority of them have been won by the Kansas City Royals.
Trevor points out in the YouTube live chat that the Royals record right now against teams over 500 is 27-35. But right now, that includes games against the Rays, who are 64-63, and they don't include Royals went 3-3 against them. And they don't include games against the Cardinals, who are 63-64. Royals went 3-1 against them. So you want to throw the Cardinals games in there? They're 30-36. Do you feel a little better? What about the Mariners? If Mariners win tonight, then the Royals going 3-3 against them, you throw that into the mix.
I probably wouldn't bet on that.
And they get closer to the 500 mark even more against those 500 teams. So Trevor also does the math that says that number around a 20-game stretch would suggest you'd win close to 9 games. You win about 8-9 games against teams over 500, and the Royals are playing 20 straight against teams over 500. Again, 8-9 wins probably gonna be good enough. It might not be. Like, I don't want to guarantee anything, but like if you tread water in this stretch, you're going to be in really, really good shape when the final 15 games roll around.
I would also like to add really quickly, and I feel like this is the most hype I've ever given the Royals in a single segment. Do you know how many teams in Major League Baseball have a winning record against teams at 500 or better?
Not many.
8.
Yeah.
8 out of 30 have a winning record against teams that are 500 or better.
One last thought.
And 12 make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to be great all the time against great teams. I could go back. I'm sure the Diamondbacks were mediocre against them last year. They made the World Series.
One last thought. If I had offered you, the Royals fan, a 76% chance to make the playoffs back on March 25th or whenever opening day was, if I'd offered you, right, a 75% chance, how fast would you have jumped at that? Because that's where Fangraphs has them right now. 75.6% chance to make the postseason. We'll let it play out. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Game 1 of 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies as the 20-game gauntlet begins. We'll take a break. When we come back, crown a weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You here from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios of 580 Sports Talk. It's time for What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. 2 news stories coming your way today to try to take down our current champion, the Stinky Feet Shooter, the gentleman who was told a hard truth by his mobile, his scooter-bound father, his dad, older man, confined to a scooter motorized transport, told a hard truth by his dad. His feet stunk. And the son's response to that was to shoot the old man in the face. Thankfully, his father survived, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a What Is Wrong With You. But it is a What Is Wrong With You. And it's our current champion. We got 2 new stories trying to take it down today. Spencer, why don't you go first?
All right. We're going to go to the great state of Florida. This actually made national NBC news, not just an affiliate of NBC. A 49-year-old Florida man hired and paid a man and woman to travel to New Jersey to carry out an acid attack on a woman with whom he had a prior relationship with, authorities said. William DiBernardino of Boynton Beach was arrested last week in Florida along with a pair he hired, Betty Jo Lane, 38, and Jamar McNeil, 39, both at Jacksonville, in connection with the July 26th attack. The county prosecutor's office in New Jersey said all 3 waived extradition and are jailed in Florida until they can be taken to New Jersey. The prosecutor's office said they were charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, aggravated assault, stalking, and possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose. It was not immediately clear whether they had attorneys or where they are jailed. The Monroe Police Department did not respond to requests for comment. Tom Gilbert, the acting chief of detectives for the prosecutor's office, said the woman's relationship with DiBernardino ended within the last year in a way authorities suspect he was unhappy with. Quote, "We're very confident he enlisted these people to carry out his wishes, and they clearly did. And that's why all 3 of them are charged," Gilbert said in a telephone interview. The attack occurred last month after the 42-year-old woman returned home from work in Monroe Township. Parked in her driveway, prosecutor's office said as she opened her car door, she was approached by a woman who threw a cup containing a highly caustic acid directly at her. According to the prosecutor, she sustained chemical burns over 35% of her body and was airlifted to a burn center where she is still being treated. The woman who threw the acid fled in a vehicle that was later determined to have been rented in Florida. Members of the Monroe Police Department prosecutor's office traveled to Florida where they assisted investigation by the Boynton Beach Police Department, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Fort Pierce Police Department, and the U.S. Marshals, among other agencies. If you're having all those agencies, I think you really did something wrong.
Spencer, I am wondering if maybe you are misinterpreting the intent of What Is Wrong With You a little bit. This is not a lighthearted, goofy story. This is terrible.
She's living, though.
Technically true.
So
technically within the rules.
I can't argue with that. I have no retort. Man, terrible. Awful.
Why are you committing an acid attack? Like, of all things. I'm floored. An acid attack. How do you know? We always talk about how stabbing is intensely personal. I feel like
very
throwing
personal.
acid on someone is also very personal.
what makes you make this diabolical plan that I'm going to hire these 2 people? They're going to go up from Florida to New Jersey and they're going to carry out this attack.
Yeah, that's wild. That's insane. My story today is also going to take us to Flagler County, Florida. This is really a question about morals, and it's really a philosophical question that comes up with this What Is Wrong With You today. A Florida mother was captured on video attacking a girl at a high school bus stop after the teen got into a fight with her daughter. 34-year-old Catherine Stephanopoulos, no known relation to George, was arrested back on August 19th and was charged with felony child abuse, according to the Miami Herald. One of the 3 juveniles involved in the brawl was arrested and charged with felony aggravated assault. However, the minors' names have been withheld by authorities, so it's unclear which of the juveniles is actually the one going to jail. Also, there was a recommended misdemeanor charge against a second girl involved in the fight. No other arrests were made, leaving one girl uncharged. It was not clear if Stephanopoulos has hired an attorney. So the school district in North Daytona has not commented, stating that on a packed bus, as students this happened after they saw a packed bus with students on their way home from Palm Coast High School. The resulting brawl was recorded by a 3-minute video that was taken from the bus itself. Stephanopoulos' daughter had texted her saying she was about to fight a girl she used to be friends with until their relationship went south over the summer. Oh, no, summertime drama. You never want to hear about it. The beef spilled over into the new school year as fall classes began 2 days prior. On the way home from school, words were exchanged, and the former friends agreed to settle their differences as soon as they reached the bus stop. The girl's mother was already waiting when the bus arrived. Moments later, the video picks up showing the two girls getting off the bus, removing their backpacks, and squaring up before they started throwing punches. They were ready. Fists up, ready to go. After a few seconds, Stephanopoulos, again, the mother, jumped in, but instead of breaking up the fight, it shows that she grabbed one of the young girls aggressively as her daughter kept throwing punches. During the struggle, Stephanopoulos and the student fell to the ground, where the woman allegedly placed her in a headlock, restricting her breathing, the girl told deputies afterwards. She thought she was Gunther. She thought she was the new world's heavyweight champion, throwing the sleeper hold on. At another point, a male student joined in an attempt to break it up, but was quickly drawn in and also began throwing punches. One student caught on video said, quote, "How did this bleep even get instigated, bruh? How is this bleep even happening?" Amid the chaos, the bus driver started leaning on the horn and yelling at the woman and the girls to stop fighting. That did not work, so the girl's sister told deputies she hit Stephanopoulos in the face with a metal cup to free her and the sibling from the headlock. She brought out the Stanley Cup, smashed her right in the face. Also, you can hear at the end of the video, quote, "Your mom's going to prison." Never want to hear that. They called 911. The cops showed up. They took witness statements, and the charges were eventually filed.
Jeffrey's got the winning name today from the YouTube live chat. Mama's going to knock you out. Mama said knock you out. Great song.
That is a great song. That's a great name. Yeah. See, this is the philosophical question I'm talking about, though. Do you just try to break it up, or do you say someone is trying to hurt my child? I am going to defend my child. Maybe it's not much of a question. I don't know. I probably wouldn't put a teenager in a headlock.
Yeah.
No, like you have to like de-escalate. Like de-escalating is the way to go. Yes, you want to protect your child. That is the goal, right? Protect your child. Protect your child doesn't mean tag team them like you're the Dudley Boys.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
That's a very different thing.
Devon! Get the table!
Like, that's not what we're doing here. We're not trying
Mom came out and hit the 3D.
We're not trying to win the tag team championship, man. You're just trying to keep your daughter from getting duffed out. That is noble. The way she went about it, absolutely not.
She's Jeff Hardy. I'm going to be Edge on top of the ladder.
So that obviously wins today. Does it beat the Sticky Feet shooter?
Nah, he shot his dad in the face.
Yeah.
Man, he shot his dad in the face. Text from the 785, though, for today's story does say, be the parent. No, I agree with that.
That is correct.
Don't put a kid in the headlock. Come on.
No.
Put her in the camel clutch.
I love the I might have to watch the video because it sounds like the commentary is really entertaining.
Yeah, that's great.
I need the commentary. I need the director's cut.
You know what we needed? Kids these days don't know about this, but you know what we needed? World Star!
World Star!
Yeah,
I miss World Star hip hop.
Yeah, the kids do not know. The children these days.
Kids, y'all don't know Kimbo Slice.
No.
You have no idea.
You wasn't there.
You will never know the chokehold Kimbo Slice had on the internet in 2009.
You wasn't there. E-Bombs World? No idea.
It is wild that a legitimate form of internet entertainment 15 years ago was, hey, you want to watch bum fights? That guy became famous. He got millions of dollars to fight on CBS.
Yes, he did. And I watched it.
Not even on pay-per-view. That was on broadcast TV.
I made the time. I watched that
too, with all my friends.
The Stinky Feet Shooter is our weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You. We're going to take a break, come back. ESPN ranked the NFL coaching staffs. Where do the Chiefs come in? Where would we rank them? We'll tell you next from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. 446 on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Top state mail supply text lines open, 785-272-9429. Again, a reminder, we're with you until 6:30 tonight, a little overtime before Royals baseball. Royals and Phillies, game 1 of 3 in the series, game 1 of 20 in the Gauntlet. Shout out David Lesky. 7:10 first pitch tonight from Kauffman Stadium. Ben Solak of ESPN decided to rank all 32 NFL teams' coaching staffs. Now, not every person on the staff, all the way down to special teams coordinator. He just ranked the head coach, offensive and defensive coordinator troikas, if you will, the trios. Probably would have been a life-altering decision to try and rank like all of the coaching staff members. That might have taken Ben Solak forever and cost him his sanity. Anyway, just the head coach and the offensive and the defensive coordinators. Does it surprise you to hear that the Kansas City Chiefs are first?
No, it does not. I mean, I can understand. I'm sure there is a Chiefs fan. You can't put us first with Matt Nagy as our coordinator. Matt Nagy is a babysitter. Like that's fine. Andy Reid's your offensive coordinator. And if you're calling him head coach and OC, then yes, easily. And Spags is probably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. If not, he's top 2, and I don't think he's 2. So yeah, I've got no complaints with that.
Yeah, Solak points out the investment in young players and ability to build custom game plans that allows the Kansas City defense to consistently deliver in the playoffs, and credits Reid as being one of the league's best offensive minds since the early 2000s. And while his clock management isn't perfect, it's far improved from the days when it was an Achilles heel. All stuff we know and agree upon and probably take for granted a little bit. So the Chiefs are at the top of Solak's list of coaching staffs. Second on the list, the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell, head coach, offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Campbell has been much better. Like one of my all-time worst takes in my life has been that Dan Campbell was not going to make it work as the coach of the Lions. I was so unimpressed with his opening press conference. We're going to bite your kneecaps. I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, that'll go over real well with grown men. Well, it has. It's gone over extremely well in that locker room. Yeah. And he's a pretty good in-game coach, too. And he's kept Ben Johnson around, who's going to be a head coach whenever he decides he wants to be. And Aaron Glenn will probably be a head coach in the league sooner rather than later as well.
That is not just a turn of phrase when you say that about Ben Johnson either, because he should have been. It sounded like it was almost guaranteed he was going to be a head coach this past offseason until he, at the last moment, decided not to. I think the thing that impresses me the most about Campbell, more than the fire, which is great, and I like the aggressiveness, and I think people don't really understand why he is as aggressive as he is, but I do think it actually makes a lot of sense just in terms of a game theory approach. I think his willingness to say, hey, I screwed up and I did that wrong and we need to fix it is maybe the thing I like the most about him, because most coaches will give you that, hey, we have things we need to fix. Yeah, okay. Dan Campbell will really come out and say, like, hey, I made a bad decision and I stuck to my guns and I'm always going to do that, but this time it didn't work and that is on me and I'm going to fix X, Y, Z for next time. And for the most part, he has. And that's the thing I like the most about him. You can see why guys really gravitate to him, and also having one of the best defensive backs coach in the league as your DC and one of the best, if not the best, offensive coordinator as your OC. Yeah, that helps.
I think it's sorry to cut you off there.
Go ahead.
I think it's really cool what he does as a leader on his coaching staff. Like if you look at his staff, you just recognize so many names. Like JT Barrett, Mark Brunell, Antoine Randall,
is he just a guy? Remember
Kelvin Shepard? Like just those off the top of my head right there. Like those are guys that played big time in the league for at least a little bit of their career.
He is doing to his coaching staff what college football writers do to the NFL draft. Like, what do you mean measurables? Just draft this dude. He was awesome. Did you not see what he did in Palo Alto week 6 last season? Just draft him. He's just good. That's what Dan Campbell does with coaches.
You know what I really like about the Chiefs and the Lions relative to the next teams we're going to talk about? All of these guys had to earn it in the dirt as coaches and earn their way. We get to the Nepo babies next. The Los Angeles Rams are third. Sean McVay is the head coach. Mike LaFleur is the offensive coordinator. Don Shula's grandson is the defensive coordinator.
I think it's almost more important to say Mike Shula's son.
Yeah, probably.
Because Mike Shula did not get all that talent from his dad.
Chris Shula is the first-year defensive coordinator of the Rams. Number 4, it's the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. They don't have an offensive coordinator. They don't need one. Nick Sorensen is their first-year defensive coordinator. That's a lot of regard for the head coaches for the Rams and the 49ers. And it's not to say that they don't deserve it. To look at the rest of their staff, say, yeah, first-year defensive coordinator, I'm sure it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens come in 5th. John Harbaugh, the head coach. Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator. Zach Orr, another first-year defensive coordinator.
See, I don't think you can do that with them. I think that is I know Baltimore was great last year. I think Todd Monken is a really good offensive coordinator. And maybe Zach Orr turns out to be even better than Mike McDonald. Never called plays before. He's very young, and young is not bad by any means, but we have absolutely no idea if he can coordinate a defense. I'm more willing to give credit to a team that doesn't have an OC like the Niners than a team with a completely unproven DC like Baltimore. I think that's too much credit.
Houston's coaching staff was ranked 6th by Ben Solak of ESPN. D'Amico Ryans, the head coach. Bobby Slowick and Matt Burke, the coordinators. Then Pittsburgh.
This is an interesting one for me.
Like, Mike Tomlin's never been a loser. And you've seen some of the quarterbacks he's had. You see the quarterbacks he's got now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's always found a way to win. Arthur Smith, I think, is actually a good offensive coordinator.
Bad head coach, good coordinator. Yeah.
I genuinely, again, speaking of Nepo babies, but Terrell Austin is the defensive coordinator, and I think he's pretty good too. I think that's a good coach. I'd move them into the top 5. I really would. I'd move the Steelers into the top 5.
I would have them above Baltimore, honestly. And I like John Harbaugh.
Green Bay's 8th. Matt LaFleur is the head coach. Adam Stenovich, offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley.
LaFleur is still underrated by a lot of people, which is mind-blowing considering he's 56-27 as a head coach. I like Stenovich. I'm not really sure what Adam Stenovich does, to be honest, but he's a great offensive line coach. I don't really know what he actually does for the offense. Jeff Hafley's never been a defensive coordinator in the NFL before.
A lot of the new coaches are ranked pretty low. My beloved Seahawks are 26th. Spencer's Commanders 31st. And the review starts, listen, this is not good. So there's that. Sorry, Spencer. We got to take a break. We'll come back and wrap up this hour. 580 Sports Talk next. Play a little on second thought, shall we, to wrap up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. On second thought, I wasn't as sold on the Royals trade deadline activity as it turns out I should have been. I didn't think Michael Lorenzen in particular was going to be a significant upgrade from Alec Marsh. but the Royals have tweaked his stuff and tweaked his pitch mix and given him some good coaching, and he's been outstanding in his first 4 starts. So credit the Royals for finding a diamond in the rough and coaching him up.
On second thought, I thought I'd be sleeping right now, but I have a little more energy than I anticipated because I've been here for 12 hours and 20 minutes.
You're going to enjoy tomorrow.
Oh,
I have a feeling. Tomorrow's going to feel good. My on second thought is referring to Tom Brady as the greatest of all time at any point, because he's not, because he had that stupid BS rant the other day that I totally tore apart and was right about, nerd. And Peyton Manning is the greatest of all time until Mahomes is done. Then it'll be Mahomes. But no, Peyton Manning today was talking about, well, I don't really agree with Tom because it's just different and there's still lots of good football, and just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad. Correct. Yes. Peyton Manning, you are right. Tom Brady, you are wrong. And you look like Skeletor. Eat a strawberry, you absolute goober.
Man, he's missing out. Strawberries are so good.
Dude, he looks sick. Like,
he
I know
does.
he has gotten like Dolly Parton amounts of work done on his face.
Like, he does look a little like skeleton-y.
Dude, have you had
little hollow?
Have a single saturated fat, please.
One more hour of 580 Sports Talk. We got headlines. We got the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. We got a Royals preview coming from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio here on 580 WIBW.
injuries and fatalities caused by impaired drivers. Remember, in Kansas, you drink, you drive, you lose.
When it comes to my lifestyle and diet, I don't always make the smartest choices. Touchdown! Woo! Hey, how about another round and some more chips? But when it comes to taking care of my liver, I do make one very smart choice. Active liver tablets from New Nordic. I used to have real issues with my liver, and at my last checkup, my doc was concerned about my numbers. But since adding a once-a-day active liver tablet, my gut's better, I feel great, and my doctor's happy. I ask a lot of my liver, so the least I can do to say thanks is a daily dose of active liver.
You ask a lot of your liver, so give it the support it needs with Active Liver. You can find Active Liver at Amazon.com or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS. Or for a volume discount, visit NewNordicUSA.com. Go to new, NORDICUSA.com, Amazon, or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS.
The Kansas Department of Transportation and the Drive to Zero Coalition invite you to join fans with a plan. If you're going to be drinking, always designate a sober driver.
A chance for a few showers and thunderstorms in the forecast as we're heading to the overnight hours. All that clearing us through Saturday morning. See plenty of sunshine and hot weather Saturday afternoon and another hot one Sunday. The overnight low 75, Saturday's high 95 degrees with a heat index peaking at 105. We're climbing up to the upper 90s on Sunday. Plenty of sunshine for Monday and Tuesday too, with those highs for the mid to upper 90s. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Ramon from the Capital Federal Weather Center.
This is the voice of Kansas, WIBW Topeka.
Let's get it. Final hour of the day, final hour of the week on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Friday afternoon on 580WIBW.com, FM 104.9, 580 WIBW, and of course, on our video stream, the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. The Facebook page is WIBW News. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis. We are here with you, all three of us together for one more hour. Then we'll have some overtime for you up until 6:30. Get you into Royals baseball. The Royals and the Phillies opening a series tonight. Interleague play at the K. First pitch at 7:10. Pregame starts at 6:30 from the Royals Baseball Network right here on 580 WIBW. Speaking of our website, 580WIBW.com, if you've been checking it out throughout the week, you know we've been rolling out the Pigskin and Hoops football previews this year. The Pigskin and Hoops magazine moving to an online-only publication this year. So if you go to 580WIBW.com right now, it's right in the center of the page, right below, in fact, our live video stream. There's a nice little red and gold logo, and it's the WIBW Pigskin and Hoops High School Sports Preview. You click on that story. It's going to take you to our table of contents where you can view all of our previews that we have published so far. We have published more than half of our high school previews. Today, we released the previews for Oskaloosa, Perry LeCompton, and Riley County football. Coming up next week, we've got a bunch of city teams still left to preview, including Seaman and Shawnee Heights, Topeka High, Topeka West, and Washburn Rural. Also got Rossville and Silver Lake still to come, and some other area schools as well. Invite you to check it out at 580WIBW.com. If you're following us on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk on Twitter, you see those stories every day. If you're following us on Facebook, WIBW News, you can also see those stories. Retweet them, share them far and wide, particularly if you are a fan or maybe a parent, maybe a coach, maybe a player, one of those schools, and want folks to be in the know about your favorite high school team as we get ready for the start of high school football season on September 6th. First week of previews is in the books. One more week of previews to go. We're rolling them out again at 580WIBW.com. Still to come this hour, we're going to hear from Mitch Holthus, voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Mitch unable to join us live today, so we've got a check-in from Mitch following last night's preseason finale, and it's our final training camp report of training camp, of the preseason. And it's brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. We'll also preview this weekend's series between the Royals and the Phillies. The Royals will actually have played 4 games before the next time that we talk to you after we sign off today, because they've got a day-night doubleheader in Cleveland on Monday. A quick turnaround for the Royals. Play a day game on Sunday, then they got to get out to Cleveland, and they got a day game, a 12:05 first pitch for game 1 of the day-night doubleheader. Again, that first game is the makeup of the game that got rained out in early June, and then a 5:40 first pitch for game 2 of the doubleheader. So 580 Sports Talk is going to kind of be sandwich. We're going to be the meat in a Royals sandwich on Monday.
That sounds delicious.
Those are the best times because you can fire off takes about the game that just happened, and then you also got a game to preview.
It is. It's kind of convenient for us. It helps us quite a bit. So that'll be Monday. But the Royals will have played the first of 4 games in that critical series against Cleveland before we get to talk to you next. So we'll preview the series this weekend against the Phillies coming up later on this hour. But we're going to get things started with the 580 Sports Talk headlines, and we start with a headline of some local interest and a congratulations to a local kid made good. Ryan Zephyrjohn, former Seaman Viking and Kansas Jayhawk, is headed to the major leagues. The Los Angeles Angels have purchased the contract of the 26-year-old Zephyrjohn and DFA'd Mike Baumann. Zephyrjohn was acquired by the Angels in a trade earlier this year, had spent his entire professional career in the Boston system after he was a third-round pick out of KU in 2019. And this year has pitched in 30 games, 29 of them in relief, and saved 7 of them over 2 levels of the minor leagues. Started the year at AA Portland in the Boston system before being called up to AAA Worcester and transferred after the trade to AAA Salt Lake in the Angels system. And he has pitched well in a Salt Lake Bees uniform in 7 2/3 innings. He's allowed just 2 runs, striking out 8, and walking just 1. And now the 26-year-old Zephyrjohn will have the opportunity to make his major league debut. The fact that they're DFAing somebody for him suggests that they want to get a real look at him here in the final month and change of this regular season. So congratulations to Ryan Zephyrjohn. Obviously had a wonderful career at Seaman, was a part of championship teams there, was drafted out of Seaman High School in the 37th round of the 2016 draft by Tampa Bay, went on to a stellar career at KU. Okay, Brendan's waving the wheat.
You know, that's right.
Ryan Zephyrjohn, in fact, is the only player to be drafted out of Seaman High School, according to Baseball Reference.
This is
directly out of Seaman, of course.
Timing wise, this would have been sick if it happened the other day.
Oh, because they were in town.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Timing doesn't always, like Walter Pennington, it worked out really nice for when the Royals called him up because they were in Colorado and he was from North Glen, I think.
Right.
One of the Denver suburbs. So yeah, it doesn't always work out like Hollywood, but it's still a great moment for Ryan Zephyrjohn all the same. And wish him all the best. I remember interviewing him after he got drafted out of KU, in fact, by the Red Sox. We had him on 580 Sports Talk back in 2019. So all the best to Ryan Zephyrjohn. Congratulations to him. And I'm sure not only a great feeling for him and his family, but all of his friends, all of his former teammates at Seaman High School, and anybody who played against him out here in the area. Now I have a chance to say, yeah, I had a bat against the big leaguer.
I played against someone who went to the major leagues. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. First headline for me. You want to talk about realignment?
Not particularly.
Well, too bad. Hey, what is the movie that video is from where the little girl goes, "I'm tired, Grandpa," and he goes, "Well, that's too damn bad."
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what we've got here. So initially reported today by The Athletic, the Big 12 is renewing discussions about adding the University of Connecticut, a longtime expansion target according to sources. Honestly, the most interesting thing here in this story, the authors include a contribution from Chris Vanini, who covers college sports, specifically football, Justin Williams, who covers the whole conference, but especially the University of Cincinnati, and Andrew Marchand, who covers sports media for The Athletic. That is really important here because you know who drives most of these conversations? The media contracts, the big wigs that work at ESPN and Fox and the like. That is significant to me. Essentially, it comes down to this. Brett Yormark has renewed his pursuit of expansion target UConn, with league officials set for a meeting next week where the issue will be reintroduced for an in-depth discussion, according to multiple Big 12 administrators and broadcast sources. ESPN's getting involved. You know there is something going on here. We know that Yormark has pitched this before. Those talks died at some point in the last calendar year. However, he is still interested in pushing for this. However, The Athletic does say it's unclear whether or not support among Big 12 presidents has increased in light of this latest round of discussions. It would require a 12 out of 16 vote to approve adding UConn. It is also mentioned in here, all UConn sports would be joining the Big 12. All of them. That's baseball. That's men's and women's basketball. That's all sorts of different things. That also would include football, which for now is an FBS independent, but would have until 2031 to make their team Big 12 ready. We will see about that.
Yeah,
That is part of the pitch. Yahoo Sports also is reporting on this. Ross Dellinger, who we've had on the program before, he says the Big 12 and UConn remain in serious discussions about the Huskies joining the league in a marriage that could bring together arguably the country's strongest basketball conference and maybe the nation's best program in hoops. UConn officials visited with Big 12 administrators in Dallas last week. Nothing is imminent, but the in-person presentation is a sign of the serious nature of the discussions. Brett Yormark is set to make a similar presentation to league presidents coming up next week. We should also add Matt Norlander, who's great covering college basketball. He's got a whole thread that is kept just on Twitter for the CBS Sports writer. But he says this. Last week at the Big 12 AD meeting in Dallas, UConn actually presented a deck highlighting investments and work they would put into football to have it Big 12 ready by 2031. So again, here's the order of these reports. Brett Yormark is interested in this. And then, actually, they've already met to talk about this. And then, UConn already has a plan for its football team to join the conference.
You forgot the other aspect of it. The networks or a network wants this to happen. Yeah. Where's ESPN located, everyone?
Connecticut.
40 miles away from stores.
Even more important than location. But in fact, I think even far more important than location. How many UConn men's basketball games does ESPN air?
Lots.
No.
None. They would air lots. They don't air any.
They do not air a single conference game. The conference agreement for the Big East does not include ESPN.
Fox, right?
Fox. Yeah, and NBC now. Yeah. That's and TNT. They also have a deal now. So ESPN doesn't get any of that. You're telling me we got to go the whole conference season and we don't get any Danny Hurley? We had to get ESPN Woj rumors that he was going to the Lakers to talk about Danny Hurley? No. That's not going to work for us. So this is very real. They're really pushing for this. And according to the Athletics report, the current members of the Big 12 have been told adding UConn would be budget neutral and would not reduce conference revenue payouts. So it would not increase the amount that KU, K-State, Iowa State, whoever, get every year from their media payouts. It would not increase, but it would also not decrease. It would just be the same. To me, and I'm biased here because I don't like this, that's not good, right? Like if you are Arizona State, and you say, God, another team we've got to compete with in basketball? Are you serious? Another team that we're going to lose to once or twice a year is going to make it even harder to make the NCAA tournament. We got to play them, and we're not even getting more money out of it? And we got to travel and send all of our teams to godforsaken Stores, Connecticut? I don't know that I'm voting for that. And I'm sure there are some administrators in the farther west schools that are going to say, money. There might be more money, so let's do it. Money me, money this, money now, money right now. Like, that's what they're going to do. But I really think that there are going to be a handful of teams that, at the very least, need some strong convincing.
Are there 5 no's? Do you think there are 5 no's? I can tell you who the yeses are. West Virginia's a yes.
West Virginia,
UCF
Cincinnati,
is a yes.
UCF,
Cincinnati's a yes.
Oh, yeah.
So those are your yeses, like right off rip.
UConn's like, God, we got to play in Orlando again. We got to play in Cincinnati again. Got to play these guys again.
We went to the Big East, so we didn't have to deal with these people. So those are your yeses to have like one more team out on the Eastern Seaboard. And like that makes a certain amount of sense, frankly.
I wonder how the three teams that I'm thinking of that come to mind right now are the teams whose basketball coaches have the most pull in their athletic departments.
Kansas.
I think those are Kansas, I think Houston, and I think Baylor.
Okay.
I think those are the three schools where the head men's basketball coach has the most pull in their athletic department.
I'd agree.
Like, do you think though that those schools want another basketball power in the conference?
No, that's my point.
Yeah.
Like if you're Kelvin Sampson, you're like, no, like I already got to go to Allen Fieldhouse every year because they're going to make that an annual 1-1 series. Absolutely.
Yes.
I got to go to Allen Fieldhouse.
Oh, yeah, for the TV
year.
ratings, 100%.
Like if you're Scott Drew, I got to go to the Fertitta Center. I got to go to Allen Fieldhouse.
I got to go to the McHale Center, play Arizona.
Yeah.
We just added another perennial basketball power to this league.
And I don't know that is going to be a deciding factor, but if I'm Travis Goff and Bill Self comes to me and said, bro, come on. Like, we think we are going to win the league anyway, but come on. I think you've got to at least take that into account. I think there are at least 5, if not more, schools you would have to really work hard to convince to get this approved. But also, if ESPN says, here is one extra penny for all 16 schools, they might just all say, ooh, penny.
A shiny penny.
Yeah. Ooh. Can we get a nickel? Ooh. Sign me up. Let's go. That might just be how it works out.
All right, Spencer, you got a headline for us?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt Brendan, but the correct movie is Holes. I got that like right off rip, but it was more important that you discuss the actual headline than the movie.
I was wondering, we had a text from the Top Seed Mail Supply text line that just said Holes, and I'm like, what? And then I remember we were talking about movies.
Yeah, no, I had it like right off rip, but I was like, this is not important to the context of the conversation.
So thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Thank you to Spencer, and thank you to the texter for helping us out there.
I'm saying this with great pleasure. According to sources, one of my contacts actually back in DC, the Nationals' top prospect, MLB's number 3 prospect, Dylan Cruz, is going to be called up to make his debut Monday in DC against the Yankees. It'll be Dylan Cruz, James Wood together at Nats Park for the first time, opposing Juan Soto and the Yankees.
That's a fun storyline.
Yeah.
Spencer, what is the Washington Nationals record?
They're irrelevant. But, they have the number 3's MLB's number 3 prospect.
58 and 70, if anybody was curious.
Yeah.
That's cool. Hey, man.
And because they're calling him up with, I think this is obviously strategic, he will still hold rookie status next year.
Have they been filling the park this year?
Not, I mean, their weekends are more than the Royals. But again, you have people visiting DC all the time, and
makes sense.
A lot of visiting fans because people go to DC for vacation. So
next headline.
But I can imagine that it's going to be very filled Monday night.
I would imagine so.
Got a fun baseball headline here as we continue our headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. Back on June 26th, the Red Sox and the Blue Jays were playing a game, and it was suspended due to rain.
I know where this
they
is.
got the game was suspended on June 26th, and they're going to make it up later this week, August 26th. Now, when the game was suspended, Toronto was batting, Boston was in the field, Cutter Crawford was pitching. He had an 0-1 count on the batter, and that batter was Danny Jansen. That's why this is why this is notable. Danny Jansen plays for the Red Sox now. So he is at bat for the other team in a game that is about to be resumed with him on the Red Sox.
And he's a catcher.
So Alex Cora today has announced that Danny Jansen is going to catch the resumption of the game on August 26th, which will make Jansen the first player in Major League history to appear, technically speaking, for both teams in the same game.
That's pretty funny.
It will be the first time it has ever happened, a quirk of scheduling, obviously, the first time in baseball history that a player has appeared for both teams in the same game. And what's wilder is that when he enters the game as the catcher, he will be catching, and the batter at the plate will be pinch hitting for him.
Wow, that's really wild. Holy smokes. I'm actually kind of amazed this has never happened before.
Unfortunately, the pinch hitter doesn't inherit a 2-strike count. So all action, whatever happens in the at-bat, will be charged to a pinch hitter. So if the count had been 0-2 when the game had been suspended, theoretically speaking, and they were resuming the game, and now Jansen's on the other team, and he's catching, and there's a pinch hitter, and that pinch hitter just watched a called third strike, Danny Jansen would have caught the third strike against him. He would have been credited with the strikeout.
Wow.
As a batter.
Wow.
He would have been the first player ever to record a strikeout as the offensive player and the putout as a defensive player.
Wow.
I'm so disappointed that did not come to be. But
what
still,
was the count?
It was 0-1.
Oh, it was 0-1.
He was 0-1.
Oh.
Yes.
One pitch away.
One pitch away from like the I'm my own grandpa of baseball scoring.
We should have games end due to darkness again. Should bring that back. Miss those days. One quick round of around the NFL for me on our 580 Sports Talk headlines today. Your Seattle Seahawks, Dan, made a trade today, sending linebacker and pass rusher Darrell Taylor to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a 6th-round pick in next year's draft. Taylor was a 2nd-round pick in 2020, did not play his rookie season after going through surgery for a broken leg. Since 2021, he has recorded 21 and a half sacks in 49 games. He has started 13 of them. He's mostly been a situational pass rusher. That comes out to about, 7.5 sacks per season. That's nice.
He's not really a 4-3 defensive end traditionally. Otherwise, I would have said the Chiefs should have maybe made a phone call. They could have had him 4-6.
More of a stand-up rusher.
I think he's a good player, but I also think the Seahawks have 4 guys better than him. Also, he's the last of the 2020 Seahawks draftees. And so that draft class is the first draft class of the general manager John Schneider era to go the entire duration of their rookie contract without winning a playoff game.
Wow. That's a lot of success.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
The Bears, we knew, were already in on Matthew Judon when he was traded from the Patriots to the Falcons last week. However, the Patriots chose the deal offered by Atlanta instead. Taylor is set to make $3.1 million this year. And according to Courtney Cronin of ESPN, the Seahawks just really did not want to pay him. And that is part of why they facilitated the trade. Bears really need some pass rush help alongside Montez Sweat and former Kansas Jayhawk Austin Booker. Also, a pair of suspensions today in the NFL for violations of the NFL's personal conduct policy. First, Alaric Jackson, could have been the left tackle for the Los Angeles Rams to start the season. He has been suspended for the first 2 games of the year for violating the NFL personal conduct policy. He will not be paid for those games against Detroit and Arizona. At least one of those seems like a pretty big game where you would really want your starting left tackle against Aiden Hutchinson. He will not play for that game. Joe Noteboom will likely replace him. No details have been given about what that violation was. We do know why Cardinals wide receiver Zay Jones has been suspended for 5 games for the personal conduct policy violation as well. He was arrested on a domestic battery charge last November and even spent a night in jail before being released the following day. The misdemeanor charge for domestic battery was dropped shortly thereafter because the defendant declined to pursue prosecution. However, the NFL deemed the incident to be in violation of the policy, leading to the league setting a 5-game ban on the receiver. Rashee Rice, if he faces any punishment, it is going to be in 2025. I don't know that, but I'm telling you, if this dude got arrested for DV or DB in this case in November last year, and it took until August this year to get a 5-game suspension, and Rice got in trouble this offseason, it ain't going to happen this year. I would be floored if something happened to Rashee Rice this year.
Yeah, I kind of think you're right on that. We're going to wrap up our 580 Sports Talk headlines there. When we come back, we will hear from the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, for one final training camp report on 580 Sports Talk. 2:32 on 580 Sports Talk. And for the last time during this Chiefs preseason, it is time for a training camp report with the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. His training camp reports are brought to us by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. Contact Crystal Rippey, Kirsten McCall, or Kristen Ambergy about the credit union advantage in getting your first or next home loan. Unfortunately, Mitch had another commitment come up today and was unable to join us live, but he did submit a final report today that he recorded for us following last night's preseason finale. And so without any further ado, let's hear from the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus.
We close out our training camp reports on this Friday with my traditional what we know and what we don't know about the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs lost 34-21 last night to the Chicago Bears, resulting in the first winless preseason record in Andy Reid's tenure as head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. We know this Chiefs team is very talented with superstars. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, probably Chris Jones are all headed someday to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they all still have juice. All of them are on a mission to be the first team in NFL history to win back-to-back-to-back Super Bowl championships. We also know that if healthy, the Chiefs team is equally explosive on offense and defense. And there's budding stars like cornerback Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis at defensive end and maybe even wide receiver Xavier Worthy. They could all blossom into big years. We also know the schedule will be tough again and that the target on the Chiefs has never been bigger. And to pull this off, this is going to be a long, hard climb. But we also know on this Friday that we have questions. We don't know about the depth of this 2024 Kansas City Chiefs team, and an 0-3 preseason and 2 blowout losses amplify those uncertainties. The Chiefs haven't established a backup swing offensive tackle. They have not established a replacement to versatile offensive lineman Nick Allegretti, now a Washington Commander. What about the overall depth at the end of the roster? Because it looked overmatched in the preseason blowouts to Jacksonville and Chicago. Cuts are looming in the next 4 days, and Chiefs general manager Brett Veach and his staff will be scouring the waiver wire to explore trades for depth on this team. The Chiefs will need that depth because it's going to take until Valentine's Day to pull this off and get that third straight ring. Get ready, Chiefs Kingdom. We're in uncharted waters. Reporting from Kansas City, I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs.
Thank you very much, Mitch,
Thank you,
for
Mitch.
that and for all
Mitch.
of the training camp reports throughout this preseason. And he's right. Like there are more questions exiting this preseason about the depth of the Chiefs than I think there have been. Like, in past years, you've always had like the camp crush, they call it, like the player that you watch in the second half of a preseason game and you go, man, I really like this guy. It's too bad they don't have room for him. Like, it's too bad that there's no room on the 53 for this player because I really like what he's showing. You get those guys every year, right? Like last year for the Chiefs, there were 2 of them. There were Amir Smith-Marset on offense, and there was, for me anyway, I remember Khalif Halassi.
Oh yeah,
at cornerback, had a really nice preseason. There's really room for him on the 53-man roster. They gave it with the Saints, if I remember right.
I feel like there's a lot of running backs that fall into that category.
Yeah, typically it's skill guys, and it's easier for it to be skill guys because like they put up stats. You can measure the stats, but every year you have that player who's like the camp crush. I got to be honest, players like 65 through 91 on this Chiefs roster, I don't ever want to see him play football again if what it looked like was what it looked like in the second half and for the better part of the preseason.
True. No, I can't disagree with you on that, honestly, because this has not been fun preseason football. Like, preseason football is only so much fun as it is like, oh, man, we can't wait to see these guys, or, oh, hope springs eternal, or, wow, we had these rookies that are actually, like, it's only fun if you end up being good in the regular season too. It doesn't really mean anything otherwise. But this was not exactly pleasant to watch.
No.
Like, I spent most of the last 3 weeks thinking, okay, just hand the ball to Carson Steele and let's get out of here. Let's keep the clock running, boys. Come on. The last night's game took over 3 hours.
It did.
There was no need for that.
Yeah, due to my obligations this morning, it was a halftime for me anyway.
Good. Consider yourself lucky.
And I was like, wow. And I woke up this morning and I looked at the score. I was like, wow, thank God I only had to watch half of that game.
Might not need to go back and watch the recording of that.
You were spared is what happened there. So, yeah, I do think that, the back third of the 91-man roster did not cover itself in glory. And I do think there are some questions, particularly offensive line and defensive end. Do they have enough quality pieces if the injury bug bites? That's a valid question. But like, if the injury bug bites the offensive line, like, kind of know how that goes. See, which Super Bowl was that? 55? See Super Bowl 55.
Yes, it was 55.
Yeah, like, you kind of know how it goes if you're down 3 offensive line starters at any one point during the season. And whether or not Hunter Norzad or CJ Hansen or Wanye Morris or Lucas Niang are good enough, like, there's going to be a decline in quality up front. You just kind of know that. And part of that is because the standard is so high for this team.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I keep saying it, champagne problems. The Chiefs have champagne problems, which are not really problems at all. And though it would have been nice to know firmly, oh man, yeah, this is the Nick Allegretti of this team, or, oh yeah, I feel really good about the trajectory for a second-year player like Felix Anudike-Uzomah, or a young player like Malik Herring, or a rookie like Jared Wiley at tight end. It would be nice to feel better about their trajectory after this preseason. I don't feel like I watched the Chiefs over the course of 3 preseason games and thought, oh boy, big problems for this bunch.
I'm just not worried about it, honestly. And again, like I said earlier, none of these guys, this depth that we're concerned about, they're never going to be playing all together at the same time. Like, if we end up with this entire backup offensive line playing together, it probably means the whole rest of the team is playing together too, because they all died in a bus crash. Like, that's just not going to happen. The backup left, if Joe Thuney misses a game, okay, well, your backup left guard is going to be playing next to Creed Humphrey and Kingsley Suamataia. Like, is it going to be great? No, but is it going to be manageable? Yeah, sure.
That's important to note.
I'm just not really worried about all that, honestly. I'm not.
Just glad it's done. I'm glad that the next time we all sit down and watch the Kansas City Chiefs, the game will mean something, and Patrick Mahomes is going to take all the snaps, and Travis Kelce's going to play all the meaningful snaps, and Chris Jones is going to play, period, because you didn't really see him in the preseason. I'm ready to see the guys who we know are the dudes, the future Hall of Famers, the possible Pro Bowlers. I'm ready to see what this thing looks like at warp speed. And I'm telling you, September 6th can't get here soon enough. Yeah. I'm really, really excited to see
we got to have it.
What the Chiefs look like, because I know what they look like, the replacement players, like from 1987.
Yeah.
At times it was that grim at times, but we know what the best of the Chiefs looks like. It looks like 2-time defending champs, and I can't wait to see how it begins on the march to a 3rd straight Super Bowl on September 6th. We're going to take a break. By the way, real quick, before we do take a break here, just want to remind folks that Mitch Holthus will continue to join us on Thursdays throughout the NFL season, throughout the Chiefs season. As long as the Chiefs are playing, we're going to have Mitch on Thursdays at 5:30 here on this program. So you have not heard the last of Mitch Holthus chopping it up with us here on 580 Sports Talk. So you won't hear him next week, but the week after, we'll hear from Mitch. We might have to move that to Wednesday because of the Thursday game. We'll see what the schedule works out there. But Thursdays throughout the season is when you can hear Mitch here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will preview a big weekend series for the Royals against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's coming up on 580 WIBW from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Before we get into the Royals, one last Chiefs tidbit. Just saw float across Twitter from Ted Wynn, who tweets at FB_film analysis.
I was just about to bring this up.
Ted Wynn tweeted some video of the Chiefs returning kicks. You had mentioned this at the top of the show. One of the things you were pleased about from the Chiefs' performance last night was you said it really looks like they've got the kick return game kind of figured out.
Yep.
The Chiefs are one of the best kick return teams in the preseason, according to Ted Wynn. They averaged 30.5 yards per return. One thing they do differently than most teams, their blockers don't retreat. So instead of giving ground, their blockers just go block somebody. And they got a couple of clips of good returns here. Louis Reese-Zammit had a good return out past the 35. If the Chiefs are averaging 30.5 yards per return, you figure for the most part last year, your starting field position after a kickoff was the 25 because the touchback was so predominant.
Yep.
And if you were trying to return it, you probably weren't getting out past the 25. So imagine 5-10 extra yards for Patrick Mahomes to work with every time he touches the ball. 5 or 10 yards less that they have to go and get to score a touchdown.
Well, and honestly, even if you have to punt the ball away and the offense isn't clicking, that's 5 or 10 more yards you're going to flip with field position if you have to punt it. So that it really works out both ways. That's a huge difference there. I am so excited to see how teams call plays and diversify things during these kickoffs. Sam Schwartzenstein, who is the guy who developed this kickoff. He played at Stanford, didn't really latch on in the NFL. He was a really good college offensive lineman. He is currently the head of the Next Gen Stats broadcast on Amazon Prime for Thursday Night Football. So if you watch the Next Gen broadcast, it has the regular broadcast, but all sorts of graphics and stats on the screen. That's a Sam Schwartzenstein thing. And he, before that, worked for the XFL. He was essentially the head of come up with new things that make us unique. How are we going to be unique? And he came up with this kickoff. And I heard him on a podcast, I think it was with Mina Kimes. And he said, my idea is that teams are going to run plays with this. Like, it's essentially going to become the guy who returns the kick is going to be either like quarterback or running back. And you can run option stuff. You can run sort of like counter plays. The other return man can be a fullback in a sense. You can do all that. He actually tweeted that last night, the Bengals ran split zone on a kickoff. Like, they legitimately came out and went split zone blocking with their up men to create a hole for their kick returner. He said, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm glad teams are leaning into what I envisioned this was going to end up being. And look, man, Dave Coe's been around football enough. I'm sure he knows how to run counter. Like, I'm sure he knows what, how to put together a jet sweep, package. So I'm really excited for the Chiefs in particular, but really around the league to see how teams make this creative. And if the Chiefs thing is very basically, we're not going to drop. Like, our kickoff guys, instead of everybody kind of fades back 5 yards when the ball is caught and then blocks like it's pass pro, and instead they're just going to stand there and slow everyone down. Great. I'll take 5 to 10 extra yards every time. Sure.
Interesting note there. And I think that could really be beneficial to the Chiefs once we get into the regular season. Let's get to some baseball. Again, we got a little overtime on 580 Sports Talk coming up. We'll take you up until 6:30 when we'll hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network for pregame coverage of the first of 3 games between the Royals and the Philadelphia Phillies tonight at the K. Only meeting this year in this interleague series. Phillies leading the National League East entering play tonight. First pitch is set for 7:10. Mentioned earlier that the Royals have the best record in the American League since the All-Star break. They're 19-11 since the break. Only the Diamondbacks, Padres, and Dodgers, the entire NL West basically, has better records since the All-Star break than the Royals do. Do you know who has the worst record in baseball since the All-Star break? Don't think too hard.
Is it the Phillies?
No.
Oh, no, the White Sox.
The White Sox are 4-26 since the All-Star
I was
break.
like, wait a minute. That must be okay. No,
Do you know it's
sense.
the second worst record in baseball?
Is it the Phillies?
It is the Philadelphia
I know
Phillies.
they've really taken off.
They are 12-19 since the All-Star break. And though their roster is still star-laden and they've got threats up and down their lineup, Harper, Schwarber, Turner, Alec Boehm's got 43 doubles. Holy smokes. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's been
the
killing
former
it.
Wichita State Shocker made his all-star debut this year. They have struggled as of late. The bullpen has kind of backed up from some early season stardom, and they are in a funk. 12-19 in their last 31 and tied with Pittsburgh technically for the second worst record in baseball since the All-Star break. They come in tonight. They will send Taijuan Walker to the mound, and of all of the starters for these Phillies, this is the one you'd want to face if you could pick. A 5.69 earned run average in 12 starts this year for Walker, just 51 strikeouts and 27 walks in his 61 2/3 innings. So this is a gettable starting pitcher. The Royals will send out Michael Wacha, who's been really outstanding of late. And it's part of a larger trend, and I think it's you, Spencer, who found this stat that the Royals and the Phillies have been some of the teams that have been able to rely the most on their starting pitching this year.
Yeah, shout out to Jake Eisenberg with the Royals Broadcasting. He put this out this morning. KC's starting pitchers, a 3.54 ERA, which is good for third in the majors, and 64 quality starts, also third. Phillies starting pitchers have a 3.47 ERA. That's second. Their quality starts is 66, also second.
So two teams that have really leaned pretty heavily on their rotations, and the Phillies have had some all-star performers in their rotation as well. Guys like Zach Wheeler. Aaron Nola wasn't an all-star this year, but has been in the past. Christopher Sanchez was an all-star this year. I think Ranger Suarez was an all-star this year too. This year or last, one of the two. It'll be Suarez who comes off the injured list to start on Saturday against Brady Singer. Seth Lugo goes on Sunday. That's TBA for the Phillies. So if you're the Royals,
looks like they're going to throw a bullpen game.
If you're the Royals, you're missing Wheeler, Nola, and Sanchez. You got to win this series. Flat out. You're going to have a starting pitching advantage in this series against the Phillies. You better go win this series. Keep struggling teams struggling. That is one of the biggest keys to success in baseball. Keep a losing team losing. Keep a struggling team struggling. Royals have been pretty good at that throughout the year. They're going to have to do that again this weekend. Jeffrey in the YouTube comment says, get 2 from the Phillies and 3 from Cleveland. That'll roll some heads. Listen, they win 5 of their next 7. I'm blocking out the end of October. I'm telling everyone, hold all my calls. The whole of October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they'll be for real.
Yes.
No question.
We know they're good. We're about to find out just how good here in these next 20 games. Again, first pitch 7:10 at Kauffman Stadium tonight. One final break. We'll come back and wrap things up with a final word on 580 Sports Talk. Walking off, wrapping up this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, start us.
My final word, it is week 0 of college football tomorrow. 4 games across 4 different networks, including the Team One Sports app. Here is the card for tomorrow. We are going with Florida State to cover the spread in Ireland against Georgia Tech. Give me the under in Montana State, New Mexico. Montana State is FCS and is favored by 2 touchdowns in that game. SMU is favored by a lot over Nevada. Nevada might be awful. I'll take the ponies. Go find the lowest number you can. ESPN has it at -25. Finally, Hawaii is a 40-point favorite over Delaware State. And we're taking the Bows. We're taking the home team. Delaware State couldn't even leave Delaware on time for their trip. Give me the Bows.
I'm riding with the Seminoles. I'm riding with you on the Seminoles. I'm going to take the under SMU Nevada. I think it's 56.5 last I saw it.
I don't hate that.
Like the under on that one. Spencer Dupuis, your final word.
Yeah, I'm getting pizza for dinner, and then I'm probably crashing after this 13,
Hell yeah, brother.
14-hour day.
My kind of Friday night.
Also, if it's going to be freaking hot as heck this weekend, trying to get out to the Topeka Food Truck Fest Sunday. I don't know how hot it's going to be.
Yeah, that's going to be worth your time, hot or not.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun time for all. Final word for me, meaningful Royals baseball here at the end of August. It should be a fun series. Got to keep the Phillies struggling. This is going to be a great test of the Royals starting pitching and, yes, probably their bullpen at some point. Royals are going to need to stack some runs. These could be high-scoring games if the Phillies offense gets right. So be fascinated to see how the Royals offense fares starting tonight against Taijuan Walker in this series. Again, pregame at 6:30, first pitch at 7:10. That means we got some overtime coming up. We're going to hear from our friend Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, coming up on the overtime conversation of the day. We will talk to you following Royals baseball, before Royals baseball, between the doubleheader on Monday. For Spencer, for Brendan, I'm Dan. Have a great weekend.